The story of what is considered the most important battle in the history of the English language is told on a 78-meter-long piece of wool that we now call the Bayeux Tapestry. Without this key artifact, much of what historians believe happened during this time would have been lost. The story was recorded in Latin, however, the descriptive pictures allow everyone to understand what happened during the most important event that changed the English language forever. Before this great battle, King Edward the Confessor ruled over a land that was rich in culture and language that we now call Anglo-Saxon England. The southern territories were inhabited by the Anglo-Saxons who came from Denmark and parts of Germany. Even the king had a culturally diverse background. Even though he was English, as a child, Edward spent most of his time in Normandy, surrounded by his mother's side of the family. This heavily influenced the way he ruled over his people. After his death in the year 1066, the English throne was heavily disputed over. Edward the Bastard, cousin to the former king, believed that Edward gave him the throne before he died. However, Harold II believed that his power in the Anglo-Saxon territory automatically made him king. Most of the people believed him, which allowed him to rise to the throne during the months that preceded the battle. When Harold took the throne, William was outraged. He sent a letter to the Pope who, during this time, had more power than even the king. Upon receiving the letter, the Pope decided that it was William who truly had a right to the throne and supported him in his conquest of Anglo-Saxon England. On the morning of October 14th, the Norman army sailed across the English Channel and landed on the southern coast of England, next to a town called Hastings. Once they arrived at their destination, William of Normandy marched his troops to Senlac Hill, where the Anglo-Saxon army greeted them. Upon arrival, it was clear that the Norman army was at a disadvantage, due to the fact that Harold and his army were positioned at the top of the hill. However, the English army was no match for the skilled warriors and horsemen of the Norman army. After a full day of battle, the English were forced to retreat when Harold was shot in the eye with an arrow, thus ending his reign as king. After the battle, William took the throne and began to rule over his people. Now that most of the educated, literate soldiers were dead, there were plenty of uneducated serfs left. This made it easy for the Normans and their language to come in and manipulate the pre-existing culture, which would later give us what we call Middle English, or the language of Shakespeare. Because of this great battle, the English language was able to develop and survive throughout history. The Norman conquest of England brought more words into our language than any other event in the history of the English language. A lot of the words created after the battle were more sophisticated, and they included bacon, embezzle, fraud, larceny, mayhem, mutton, squirrel, and of course, the wicket.